Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, Mike Lindell sent me a note yesterday. He has a special for the 6-piece towel set, $25 when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com, use promo code Joey. You'll get the $25 offer on the 6-piece towel set, and I promise you, these will be the most comfortable, the most absorbent towels that you own. mypillow.com, use promo code Joey. Get the 6-piece towel set for just $25. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Just when Joe Biden thought that he had whipped the Democrat congressional leadership back in line, the Hollywood elites have now gone south on him. We have the latest Democrat elites who want Biden replaced on the ticket in November, and it may surprise you who they are. An Arizona judge on Tuesday dismissed a case against rancher George Allen Kelly, who is charged with murder after being accused of shooting a Mexican national on his border property. We have the latest details on that decision. And are we getting closer to knowing who Donald Trump has chosen as his running mate? The president called into the Brian Kilmeade radio show yesterday and discussed the candidates who appear to be on the final list.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but you know they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Just when Joe Biden thought he was comfortable in getting his party's nomination and that he had the Democrat congressional leadership settled down, kind of back in line, guess who's gone south on it? The Hollywood elite, starting with actor and longtime Democrat Party supporter Michael Douglas, who admitted yesterday that he is, quote, deeply concerned about whether President Biden can win re-election following his debate performance last month. Douglas appeared on ABC's The View. He was asked about the calls from the media and some of his fellow Democrats for Biden to abandon his re-election campaign. Douglas seemed torn, describing Biden's political career in glowing terms, but wondered if this race is just too crucial to risk on him losing to former President Trump. Douglas said this just happens to be one of these elections that is just so crucial, and it's really hard. You could tell he was torn with his answer to the question.
You even hosted a fundraiser
I did.
At your home in April, right?
I did.
So what do you think of his debate performance, and do you agree with calls for him to step aside? Even Nancy Pelosi seems on the fence now about him stepping aside.
I know this is such a tough one, but I adore the guy. You know, 50 years of public service.
He's a lovely man.
He's been a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
And this just happens to be one of these elections that is just so crucial.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. I don't worry necessarily today or tomorrow, but a year down the line, I worry. I am concerned.
Yeah.
Well, at least he's truthful to say that he is concerned. Joining the list of Hollywood elites, actor George Clooney was a little more direct. He called on President Biden to leave the 2024 race in a New York Times guest essay written and published yesterday, just weeks after raising millions for Joe Biden. Clooney wrote, "It's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010, he wrote. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. He said, was he tired? Yes. A cold? Maybe. But our party leaders need to stop telling us that 51 million people didn't see what we saw. We're also terrified by the prospect of a second Trump term that we've opted to ignore every warning sign," he wrote. The actor joined a growing list of Hollywood elites and mega donors who've turned on Biden following the debate, where his poor performance, he looked old, he looked frail, at times he was confused, and they should be alarmed. Americans should be alarmed that that's the man who's our sitting president. Members of Biden's party, some of his longtime political allies, liberal media figures, have all pressured the president to drop out of the race, warning that he cannot beat Donald Trump. Clooney wrote in his column, "This is about age, nothing more, but also nothing that can be reversed. We're not going to win in November with this president," he wrote. Democrats have more to lose in the White House. They're also concerned about the down ballot races, those congressional seats. The Republicans gaining a larger majority in the House and potentially gaining majority in the U.S. Senate. Clooney warned that it was past time to put forward a new candidate and chided Democrats for putting their heads in the sand on the party's dilemma. He said, the dam has broken. We can put our heads in the sand and pray for a miracle in November, or we can speak the truth. Clooney called on top Democrats like Senator Chuck Schumer and Representative Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi, as well as candidates who are at risk of losing their own elections, to pressure Biden to, quote, voluntarily step aside. With Biden off the ticket, other Democrat leaders could come forward and make their case to the American people, he argued. Let's hear from Maryland Governor Wes Moore and Vice President Kamala Harris and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, he said, and California Governor Gavin Newsom, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. He went on to say, would it be messy? Yes, democracy is messy. But would it enliven our party and wake up voters who long before the June debate had already checked out? It sure would, Clooney wrote. Now, despite the mounting pressure, and it does seem to continue to grow, even though some of the Democrat congressional leadership have said they're going to stick with Joe Biden, the money's going to start drying up if people like George Clooney pull out. President Biden has insisted to his supporters and media outlets that he's going to stay in the race, that he remains the best candidate to beat Donald Trump. He's convinced himself of that. The Biden campaign pointed Fox News Digital to Biden's repeated statements about staying in the race, basically saying, hey, nothing has changed with us, even after George Clooney and Michael Douglas have said so. And then piling on to Clooney's complaint came a former advisor to President Barack Obama who broke his silence concerning President Biden's mental fitness yesterday as well, just hours after the damaging op-ed by actor George Clooney was published. John Favor said, it was not going to surprise any of us who were at the fundraiser. I was there. Clooney was exactly right, and every single person I talked to at the fundraiser thought the same thing, except for the people working for Joe Biden, or at least they didn't say that. Now, John Favor is a member of the group that often referred to as the Obama Bros during his tenure in the White House. He said this during an appearance on CNN yesterday. Favor was citing the same fundraiser as Clooney in his guest essay, where, again, Clooney says that it's not Joe Biden that he saw in the debate is not the same Joe Biden that he saw just a few weeks ago, suggesting that Biden is failing quickly. And no way he's going to serve 4 years. May not even make it to November. Favor agreed, telling CNN, quote, I remember my wife, Emily, turned to me after the fundraiser and said, what are we going to do? And I said, well, there is a debate in a week. Either he'll do well in the debate and we'll think he was just tired because he flew all the way back from Europe, and that'll be that, or he'll be like this at the debate, and then the whole country will be talking about it. So here we are. And I get back to my theory that someone within the Biden operation, that's what they had in mind. That's the reason they insisted on having this debate so early. Remember, this was unprecedented. Historically, we have never had a presidential debate in modern times this early in the process before either candidate has been formally nominated by the party. Yet Joe Biden came out very forcefully challenging Donald Trump. It was really took everybody by surprise the day that Biden made the announcement. So someone convinced Joe Biden, and Biden's not sharp enough to understand what just happened. Someone convinced Joe Biden, you need to do this, go out there and show him. And they were testing Biden. They wanted Biden to show what he has or what he doesn't have so that we could be having this discussion. I am convinced this was on purpose, and Biden wasn't smart enough to recognize it. Biden wasn't smart enough to realize that he had been set up by his own party, by his own staff. We may never know exactly how this came about, But I guarantee you, there was a meeting somewhere in some dark room. Maybe they were smoking cigars like you see in all the movies. And a group of people decided, hey, we're gonna trick Joe into calling on the debate. We're gonna kind of just beef him up there and let him go out and challenge Donald Trump to a debate, because they knew Trump would accept. They knew Trump was not afraid of debating at all. And we're going to have this debate. And if old Joe doesn't do so well, maybe there'll be enough pressure to get him out of the race. Maybe the country will pressure Joe enough that he'll see he needs to step aside. Well, that's what they tried. And by the way, he failed miserably. And that's exactly what's happening. Everybody in the country is talking about Joe Biden getting out of the race, everybody except Joe Biden. Joe Biden still hasn't been convinced, and he's not smart enough to realize he's not capable of running another campaign. He's not capable of being president for another 4 years. Not that he was ever capable, but he certainly is not capable now. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Joey Hudson here. I was talking to a good friend the other day, and he mentioned that he has started taking the weight loss injection drug that was initially made to treat type 2 diabetes. He said he's losing weight, but the day after he takes the injection, he is so sick he can't leave the house. That got me thinking. Most of us go on a weight loss journey so that we can feel better and get healthy. Folks, losing weight should not make you sick. I can tell you firsthand, 4 years ago when I started PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, I was never hungry or agitated. I never felt sick. In fact, I felt great the very first week. The PhD side effects are better sleep, more energy, smaller clothes, and a general sense of well-being. Getting healthy should not make you sick, and it shouldn't make you dependent on a drug either. Simply put, PhD is freedom. You will not be dependent on a drug because there are no drugs. You'll learn to eat for your body, and you won't gain the weight back. They have a lifetime maintenance program, and PhD teaches you to trust yourself and your knowledge. Call them today, 864-252-4925. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. That's 864-252-4925. We're on the final countdown to Donald Trump naming his vice presidential nominee. I've got some new additional information. President Trump did a radio interview with Brian Kilmeade yesterday. A little later in the show today, I have parts of that conversation for you. Appreciate you joining me on this Thursday edition of Sunrise Carolina. I'm a little stuffy. I think coming back from my cruise, just being on the cruise ship and then being on an airplane most of Sunday, I've just have allergies. Now, I will say I got a little concerned at one point. Peg was saying, you think you have COVID? Because there's a lot of people. We have several members of our family, I haven't been around them, who have tested positive for COVID recently. So it had me a little concerned, so I have tested twice, and both times were negative, so it's not COVID, but just allergies. I've just been stuffy, and you can probably tell it in my voice. So I apologize if I sound a little stuffy. Actually, after the show later in the morning, I'm going to run over to see my doctor, and just let him give me a checkout, because I got to head to Milwaukee on Sunday, so I can be there and tell you all about the Republican National Convention next week. So I got to get the feeling better, and I got to get rid of these sniffles. An Arizona judge yesterday dismissed the case against rancher George Allen Kelly. Now, you'll remember this story. Mr. Kelly was charged with murder after being accused of shooting a Mexican national on his border property. Kelly, 75 years old, was accused of killing Gabriel Cuen Bautisma, who was 48 years old at the time, on his 170-acre cattle ranch near Keno Springs, just outside of Nogales, Arizona. This was back in January of 2023. Santa Cruz Superior Court Judge Thomas Fink said the state, quote, has decided not to retry this case following mistrial because another jury would not convict the defendant based upon the same evidence. Fink wrote, at best, another hung jury would result. More likely, another jury would acquit. Santa Cruz County prosecutors in April decided not to retry Kelly after Judge Fink declared a mistrial due to a hung jury. jurors had voted in favor of acquitting Kelly 7-1 of second-degree murder or the lower counts of manslaughter, negligent homicide, or aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. In his decision, the judge cited a lack of physical evidence and witnesses despite the fact that the shooting occurred more than a year ago. The bullet that allegedly killed Ramirez was never located. The judge also questioned whether the only witness named who came forward, Daniel Ramirez, a man who was walking with Bautisma on the night that he died, would even be around for another trial. Ramirez testified that he has tried and failed to cross the border 10 times. There's no assurance that his whereabouts would be known in the future, Judge Fink said. Prosecutors have said that the jurors' opinions about the border may have impacted their decision-making in Kelly's trial, but Fink said that's only speculation. I mean, you unless you're a mind reader, you don't really know, do you? Unless some of these prosecutors know how to read people's minds, how do they know what they're thinking? How do they know potential biases? The judge described the jury as rational and diverse in their 7-1 decision to acquit Kelly. Fink wrote, the court finds that the state is not able to articulate a reasonable basis for holding this case open with a dismissal without prejudice. The interests of justice are not served by the dismissal without prejudice for a case that cannot and will not be retried. The interests of justice are not advanced where the only thing to be accomplished by dismissal without prejudice is the harassment of the defendant. And he's right. You know, hey, all in, all done. I don't know that there's a jury going to convict a man of protecting his property. And that's what this rancher was doing. He had an illegal on his property in a very, that border area in Arizona, well, all border areas for that matter, but that particular area is dangerous. You got the drug cartels. So this rancher, he didn't know who he was dealing with. All he knows, somebody was trespassing on his property. Property owners along the border should be able to protect themselves. No questions asked. He should have never been tried to begin with. You agree? Love to get your text messages on that. Email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Artificial intelligence, it seems to be everywhere these days. Road safety and traffic management are early tests for states seeking to adopt new artificial intelligence systems. California, Florida, Texas, according to the Associated Press, have all embraced new AI programs in the transportation sector using new systems to manage traffic flows and detect incidents on the roadways. The whole premise here is that AI can detect when traffic is heavier and when stoplights may need to go on more frequently. Connecticut is using federal funds to pay for research into AI's applications in detecting deteriorating infrastructure. Pennsylvania is using AI as well. Their transportation department's using it to develop lighter concrete blocks and new noise-absorbing materials for walls along interstates. And we might as well just get used to it. We're going to see more AI being used than ever before. I was in a conversation with some friends yesterday, and we're talking about ChatGPT and just how amazing it can write things for you. You just give it a few words, and it takes off. It'll write a whole page for you. It's AI can be scary, but I think it's here to stay, so we need to embrace it and learn everything we can about it. Education. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin has issued an executive order to establish state guidance and model policies restricting the use of cell phones in public schools. This is starting to be a trend, folks. It seems like every day, or at least every week, a new area is talking about restricting the use of cell phones in schools. Hey, and it's coming none too late. There's no reason why kids can't go to school and not have to have their cell phones. You agree? I'd love to hear from those of you who have kids in school. Is there a reason that you want your kid to have a cell phone in school? If there's an emergency, they could use the phone in the office. Cell phones, I would imagine. Now, look, I'm at the age that we didn't have cell phones when I was in school. But I can imagine how distracting cell phones would be for kids. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself, if you're looking for a new appliance, to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com. dawpickens.com. We're on the final countdown to the RNC in Milwaukee, and the speculation builds daily, literally, on who Donald Trump's going to choose as his vice presidential running mate. Trump was on the Brian Kilmeade radio show yesterday and has kept the guessing game going when Brian tried to nail him down on who is going to be his running mate.
Joining us now, President Donald J. Trump. Mr. President, welcome back.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. Big rally last night, I will say.
I know, it was good. I thought it was significant that you had the vice president and kind of a vice presidential finalist, Marco Rubio, introduce you. It makes sense because it's a Florida congressman. But what did you think of his speech? What did you think of, what do you think about him now, knowing that it's only going to be days away from making an announcement?
Well, he's very good, and we have some great people that we're looking at. We have, as they say, a deep bench, but Marco was great last night, very popular, and he's certainly one of the people that we're looking at out, over the next week or so I'll announce. I'd love to do it during the convention. In the old days, they did it during the convention, and it kept the convention very exciting, actually. So we'll see about that. But pretty soon we'll be announcing, but we have some great people, as you know all of them.
Right, you got J.D. Vance, who's with Governor Burgum in North Dakota, and then you have Tim Scott. Those are the four finalists. Should I expand that at all if I'm thinking comprehensively about what's on your mind?
Well, you could. I think I'm pretty well set in my own mind. But, you got some good people, and I have changed a little bit. But they're all great. Anyone would be fantastic. Anyone would be a lot better than laughing Kamala. She's terrible. Kamala is just terrible.
Sources close to the Trump organization say that, and several other media sources have reported on this, Fox News, other news organizations, that basically there are three names that are being considered now. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, whom we've talked about a number of times here on the show, Senators J.D. Vance of Ohio and Marco Rubio of Florida. It seems those are the three final names. Tim Scott's name is still out there, but it appears that these three gentlemen, or at least that's the direction that Trump wants us to think. And, he loves to play games. He likes to keep the showbiz part of this. The former president, in the interview with Brian Kilmeade, Kilmeade's trying to sort of handicap some of the leading contenders. Trump talked about some of the concerns that he has for each of them. Rubio and Trump, of course, were pretty fierce competitors in the 2016 Republican presidential primary. The senator, since then, though, has become a pretty strong ally of Trump's during his tenure as president and even since. Kilmeade asked Trump about the three candidates and specific issues that could be detrimental to each. For example, does Trump really not like J.D. Vance's beard? There's been circulation recently of the idea that J.D. Vance may not be the selection because Trump doesn't like beards. He doesn't like men to wear beards. It's kind of odd. His son, Don Jr., has a beard. So he asked him that question. He also asked, is Governor Doug Burgum's strict stance on abortion, could that be an issue? And finally, how is the issue of residency solved if Rubio is the choice, with both Trump and Rubio living in Florida? Here's the exchange.
Real quick, on your vice president candidate, word is that you won't pick J.D. Vance because of his facial hair. Is that true?
No,
facial hair.
I've never heard that one.
Number two,
no.
Doug Burgum, the thing
Looks
that hurts.
like a young Abraham Lincoln.
Right, he's a handsome man. Doug Burgum,
he's a nice guy.
On abortion in North Dakota, he signed something the legislature handed him. Does that hurt him?
Well, it's a little bit of an issue. It's a pretty strong ban. I think Doug is great, but it is a strong. He's taken a very strong stance, or the state has. I don't know if it's Doug, but the state has.
Yeah.
It's an issue.
And lastly, Marco Rubio.
An issue.
Marco Rubio and being from Florida, would that stop you from picking him?
No, but it does make it more complicated. You do that, and it makes it more complicated. There are people that don't have that complication. Now, it's fairly easily fixed, but you have to do something with delegates, or there has to be a resignation, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not like picking some people where it's very easy, where there is none of that. Florida, meaning two people can't be running on the same ticket. You actually can, but they take delegates, and taking delegates is, a very risky thing to do, right?
See you in Milwaukee, Mr. President. Thanks so much for the quality time for our audience, and thanks so much for the insight. Do you think you'll make your...
Now, these are all valid questions. Fox News did a column outlining some of the issues. Both Trump and Rubio reside in Florida, and the 12th Amendment to the Constitution states that presidential and vice presidential candidates running on the same national ticket shall not be an inhabitant of the same state within themselves. Trump's use of the word complicated, because that's what he said, it's more complicated, is an interesting answer to that, because it leads you to suggest that one of the two of them could potentially change their residency. And I would argue that it would be easier for Donald Trump probably than Marco Rubio. I would imagine that Marco Rubio is not going to resign his U.S. Senate seat to run for vice president, so he needs to remain a resident of Florida. So I would suggest that Trump probably will become a citizen of another state. He certainly has property in a lot of other states. I doubt he's going to go back to New York. Then they, as you heard, they talked about Doug Burgum. Burgum has been a top Trump surrogate since the governor endorsed President Trump back in January, a month after he had ended his own White House bid. You heard Trump say, I think Doug is great. But he was asked about North Dakota's 6-week abortion ban, which the governor signed into law last year. Trump said it's a little bit of an issue because, as we've seen in the party platform that's going to be presented to delegates next week, there's no wording in there that would prevent a nationwide ban on abortion now. Some have argued that that's a softening on Trump's side as far as the issue of life goes. It's angered some social conservatives and evangelical leaders for his opposition to a proposed federal abortion ban. But, I think Trump is right from the standpoint that it is an issue that states should be allowed to handle, that states should be allowed to answer, just like we have done here in South Carolina with our fetal heartbeat bill. Trump told Kilmeade that when it comes to his decision, he said, I think I'm pretty well set in my own mind. As for the timing, he reiterated, I'd love to do it during the convention. And that's the old style conventions. That's kind of how they did this. Things have changed, though, with conventions because they're more media oriented. And so that vice presidential candidate needs time to prepare his or her. I'm going to assume it's going to be a man because most of the women have been taken out of the conversation. But they have to prepare their speech because they give their speech on Wednesday night. That's the tradition. One final thing, and there's been a lot of discussion, again, about the GOP platform. and some of the changes made to it. Kilmeade asked Trump if the platform is not leaning more towards moderates to try to placate the moderate faction of the party. Here's his answer.
To this platform, I know Michael Waltz and Marsha Blackburn worked on it too, and you simplified it. And for the first time,
Right.
no nationwide ban on abortion for the first time in 40 years. IVF is okay with you. No mention of traditional marriage because I guess you're pulling back on that a little. It seems as though this is something that's targeting moderates. What was your approach to this platform?
Well, it's not targeting moderates, it's common sense. They basically had, in some cases, gay bans. I don't want that. That's not what we're about. They had other things that are ridiculous. The abortion issue is much simplified right now because I brought it out, by getting rid of Roe v. Wade. That was an incredible thing because after 52 years, and everybody wanted this, Democrats, Republicans, and all legal scholars wanted it. They didn't want it to be in the federal government. They said it's a state's issue. And I was able to bring it back into the states. And now the states are voting. And honestly, in some cases, the vote's liberal. And in some cases, it's more conservative.
Right.
But the states are now voting. And it's the people that are voting. But, Ryan, the people are voting. And it's the way it was supposed to be. If you remember, for 52 years, they've been trying to get it so it's states. It's in the states. But it got stuck in the federal government with
Right.
Roe v. Wade. I was able to get that out. That was a great service. Now, and it's turning out very liberal. Look at Ohio. Ohio went for something that's much more, I will call it, liberal than
Gotcha.
People would have thought.
But yet that's firmly in your column by about 9 points.
It's now a vote of the people.
And again, I'm glad that South Carolina is allowed to put the restrictions that we have, and we may even improve on that at some point. But it is a little different to not have a stronger pro-life statement in the GOP platform, and there's a lot of conservatives not happy with that at all. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you could trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. Let's get updated on some of our text messages. Your comments are always welcome. You can text me. You can email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Faye writes, Joey, I know someone who does closings on home loans. When Trump was president, her job was 5 days a week. Under Bidenomics, she now only works 3 days a week unless one has dementia. This is proof what Bimbo Biden has done to our economy. And he has made the housing industry pretty tough these days. And Faye, appreciate your comment. You're not the only one. There are others. I know people in not only the mortgage lending side of it, but the real estate sales side of it. Realtors are struggling right now because we're in sort of a peculiar real estate market. You have families who traditionally would have moved on to maybe upgraded and gone to a bigger home for their growing family. But although real estate prices are pretty good now, and they would probably make money on selling their home and be able to buy a bigger one, but they don't want to pay the higher interest rates. Their mortgage rates would be so much more because some of them are locked in a 2.5, 3% interest rate. Now they'd have to settle for a 5 to 6 or 7% interest rate. They don't want to do that. And I get it. Texter says, hey, this is Sherry in Georgia. Biden is definitely leading us or his cronies straight into bankruptcy and World War III. He's not busy leading us. He's busy napping and eating ice cream. Jennifer says, I think Trump might be considering all of the angles himself these days. She writes, Lindsay on one of the Sunday talk shows said he had played golf with him the previous week. Lindsay was also asked about Trump's very controversial Truth Social post calling for a televised military tribunal for the January 6th committee. And Liz Cheney is guilty of treason and put Biden, Kamala, Schumer, McConnell, etc. in jail. Lindsay warily answered the question, saying that he could assure everyone that there was not going to be a military tribunal. And then he segued into a different subject. However, Jennifer says the Democrat media support team was going nuts over it. They were all reporting it. I didn't hear anything about it on Fox, and then it appears to die as if it never happened. Interesting. Jennifer, honestly, I didn't see it on True Social, but maybe it was. I'll look into that. Appreciate your comment. Texter says, Joey, Joe Biden and Donald Trump playing golf would be another installment of Caddyshack. This in reference to yesterday we were talking about that Trump has challenged Joe Biden to play a round of golf. You know, Biden is the one in the debate who tried to be the big man on the block, saying, hey, you know, I'll challenge you to a round of golf if you carry your own bag, as if Joe Biden is capable of carrying his bag. So Donald Trump has accepted that. I think it was marvelous. He challenged Joe Biden to that round of golf and saying, hey, Joe, if you beat me, I'll even give $1 million to a charity of your choice. Now, do you think Joe Biden's going to take him up on that? Do you think there's any way possible Joe Biden would ever play Donald Trump in a round of golf? I'll bet you on that one. Texter says the early Americans used to have duels regularly. At least we could do a round of golf. But yeah, I agree. Maybe rather than another debate, let's play golf. Texter Joey, old Jordan couldn't find golf bag, let alone swing a club in the first tee. Roger. All right, Roger. Appreciate that. Texter, I'm surprised that Joe didn't challenge Trump to a push-up competition. Now we're starting to make fun of the old man. Texter says, what about dueling pistols? Ray says, welcome home, Joey. I'd like to publicly thank Crooked Joe for the best entertainment of the last 50 years. Watching the Democrats melt down is more fun than throwing away $2 on a lottery ticket and figure out how to spend the money you know that you're never going to win. I know this election is very serious, but we all need to have some fun every chance we get. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Ray. Appreciate that. Our text of encouragement today from Joel. Ability may get you to the top, but it takes character to keep you there. Appreciate all of your text messages. Many more out there. Just can't read them all, but keep them coming. Keep those emails coming as well. Joey at joeyhudson.com. One quick final note for you. You know, several weeks back, actually, I guess maybe a couple of months ago, when Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law the new minimum wage for restaurant workers, $20 an hour. We all knew where that was headed, didn't we? We knew what fast food chains would do if they had to start paying these teenagers $20 an hour. Well, Wendy's and Jersey Mike's franchise owners in California have reportedly started to cut hours and slash jobs to offset the spike in labor costs that has been caused by the $20 minimum wage in California. Lawrence Ching, who operates 7 Wendy's franchises in Southern California with his family, has not only chopped hours, but has also stepped in to fill shifts at his burger joints, he said. In a statement to the Associated Press, he says, I schedule one less person, and then I come in for that time that I didn't schedule, and I work that hour. So you see, this is costing these very workers that Joe Biden had hoped to help. At his Wendy's in Fountain Valley, located in Orange County, He's reduced staffing to 7 workers for the afternoon shifts, compared with around a dozen before the state raised the minimum wage to $20 from $16. So think about that. 5 people lost their job because of the $20 minimum wage. I wonder what they think about that minimum wage now. They were probably some of the ones who were out marching and protesting, demanding a minimum wage. Now they're standing in an unemployment line. Chang has also limited overtime pay, but said he does not plan to lay off any of his 250 employees beyond now. That's not the case for Jersey Mike's owner, Juan Carlos Chacon, who runs 9 locations in Los Angeles. The higher minimum wage, which went into effect in April, has forced him to slash 20 part-time staffers from 165 to 145, as well as reduce staff hours. He's also had to raise the price of menu items, something that many of his fast food rivals at McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, and In-N-Out have also done. So we've got these young people losing their jobs, and we have people who frequent these restaurants having to pay higher prices. Is anybody surprised? Surely Gavin Newsom is smart enough to realize this was going to happen. Surely the esteemed members of the California House of Representatives and the esteemed members of the California Senate knew this was going to happen when they passed this crazy bill anyway. Chacon told the Associated Press, "I've been in the business for 25 years and 2 different brands, and I never had to increase the amount of pricing that I did this past time in April." Chang raised the prices at his Wendy's location by 8% in January in anticipation of the higher labor costs from the law signed by the California governor. He said when labor costs jumps 25% overnight, any restaurant business with already thin margins will be forced to reduce expenses elsewhere. Again, I know nothing about a fast food franchise of a restaurant, but I know simple business. And when your labor cost goes up this dramatically, $4 an hour, and you have to do it. I mean, think about all of those summer internships that'll disappear. A lot of kids out for a summer break from college, not getting that internship that they need, that would be valuable to their future, and they're not getting it now because Gavin Newsom raised the minimum wage to $20. Have you ever noticed how the Democrats always love to blame someone else? The Democrat Party has always been the party of blame. They love to point the finger at others. They never accept responsibility for their own failures. One of the most glaring examples currently is Joe Biden blaming the crisis at the southern border on President Donald Trump, which we all know is absolutely absurd. Biden believes the American people are too stupid to see through his blame game. Biden frequently mentions the job growth, for example, during his administration, and reminds everyone that millions of jobs were lost in Trump's last year in office. Yet he fails to mention the fact that the world was in the middle of a pandemic. So to pat himself on the back and take credit for job growth over the past few years is just absolutely absurd. Now, there's some topics that Biden doesn't like to talk about. Inflation, for example, because that's a tougher issue for Democrats to point the finger at someone else. Everyone knows that Biden's outlandish spending programs have resulted in record inflation that's hurting every single American, whether they want to admit it or not. In response to Trump's challenge to a round of golf just recently, you remember this exchange during the debate a few weeks ago when you had these 2 grown men bragging about their handicap. When Trump challenged Joe Biden to a round of golf, Biden stuck his chest out and said, of course, he would accept the challenge, only if Donald Trump would carry his own golf bag. Now, we all know that Joe Biden couldn't carry a golf bag from the White House door out to the presidential limousine, let alone carry it for 18 holes in a round of golf. Donald Trump may not be able to either, but he's more likely to be able to than Joe Biden. We do know that Donald Trump can play 18 rounds of golf. There's no evidence that Joe Biden could even withstand 18 holes of golf in a single day. Have you seen Joe Biden play a round of golf since he's been president? So in response to Trump's challenge to a golf match, and look, personally, I wish they would just schedule a round of golf rather than another debate. Would you rather see Donald Trump and Joe Biden square off in a golf match rather than sit through another debate like we did a couple of weeks ago? So in response to Trump's challenge, and by the way, Trump is offering to pay the charity of Joe Biden's choice $1 million if Biden beats him. Trump will make a donation of $1 million. So in response to this, here's what the Biden press office from the Biden campaign, here's their response. We challenged Donald Trump to create jobs, but he lost 3 million. We challenged Donald Trump to stand up to Putin, but he bent the knee to him. We challenged Donald Trump to follow the law, but he breaks it. We challenged Donald Trump to not destroy our country, but that's all his Project 2025 aims to do. They went on to say Joe Biden doesn't have time for Donald Trump's weird antics. He's busy leading America and defending the free world. Donald Trump is a liar, a convict, and a fraud, only out for himself, par for the course. And I would say probably pun intended. This is typical. Democrats never accept responsibility for their actions. They're delusional and live in a delusional world. This is not only the case for the president, but at Democrat politics at all levels. Here's a great example. Have you heard this one? Over Independence Weekend, over 100 people were shot in Chicago. 19 of these, unfortunately, were fatal, according to multiple reports from city officials. So what did the mayor have to say about the crime-riddled city of Chicago? Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson blamed, you ready? Blamed the late President Richard Nixon for rampant violence in his city. Now keep in mind, Richard Nixon died in 1994. Johnson's response to that was to blame a former president instead of acknowledging that the city's soft on crime policies, among other things, contributed to these fatal shootings. Mayor Johnson believes that Black Death has been, in his words, accepted in this country. Here's the mayor at a news conference yesterday.
Where there's poverty, there's destruction and terror and torment. Now, as I said, I'll finish with this. We got to hold people accountable. But you know what my ultimate goal is to transform this city so we cut off the pipeline of boys between the ages of 10 and 19 being either victims or the perpetrators. So, yeah, it is personal. Black Death has been unfortunately accepted in this country for a very long time. We had a chance 60 years ago to get at the root causes, and people mocked President Johnson. And we ended up with Richard Nixon. I'm going to work hard every day to transform this city. That's what it takes to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago. And I need everybody to step up and help us do that.
This man actually blamed Richard Nixon for the crime in his city. Nixon left office 40 years ago. You see what I'm saying? Democrats never take responsibility for their actions. They always point the finger towards someone else. In this case, the blame game that Mayor Johnson is playing is absurd, to blame a president who left office 40 years ago. By the way, a reporter from the local ABC affiliate wasn't going to exactly accept the mayor's excuses. Guess where the good mayor was on July the 4th when a lot of the violence took place? The mayor was out of town.
Sarah Schulte, ABC 7. I understand both of you guys were in the Grand Crossing neighborhood on Friday night, I believe. I have a question for the mayor. That is quite a few hours after the initial event. Were you out of town on Thursday?
I was out of town earlier this week.
On Thursday, on 4th of July,
Yes.
you were out of town.
Yes.
Given the fact that 4th of July is known to be a very violent time in the city of Chicago, do you think that was a wise idea to be out of town?
Well, here's what I can say emphatically, that my work never ends. It doesn't. You know, I accept the responsibility of 24/7 on call every day of the week. It's very seldom do I get a chance to celebrate, on a personal level. But, the communications between my office, Chicago Police Department, OEMC, our state and federal partners, none of that stuff stops because I'm out of town. Of course, once I was arrived for the entire weekend, as what has been indicated, we had an early morning call on Friday with our summer operations with Chicago Police Department, Chicago Fire Department, OEMC. Of course, I was there for Operation Wake Up and throughout the entire weekend.
After Johnson's ludicrous statement about Richard Nixon, the Nixon Foundation released a statement saying Mayor Johnson's reference to President Nixon is gratuitous and the facts are not on his side in his characterization. They went on to explain how Nixon's administration worked to desegregate all schools after the Supreme Court handed down its landmark Brown versus Board of Education decision. They noted that over the course of Nixon's tenure as president, schools were effectively and peacefully desegregated. The foundation noted that Nixon allocated $12 million for research on sickle cell anemia, which impacts 1 out of every 500 black children, and the list goes on of things that the Nixon administration accomplished for the black community. Again, just another example of Democrats placing the blame. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and if we're going to win in November, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. Don't forget to take advantage of the MyPillow special, $25 for the My Towels 6-piece towel set when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. We're back again tomorrow. Hope you will be too. Remember, God's got this. He's still in control.